There we go.
Happy belated birthday to Cheryl, by the way.
Happy birthday, my Cali girl.
All right, guys. Welcome to our scheduling training. Who needs a better schedule so we can have more consistent results, right? So,
Absolutely.
so many people they sit in, all these different trainings about mentality and anything else, but they fail to run a consistent schedule, so the results are inconsistent. And unfortunately, they never get to it, and they start thinking Primerica doesn't work because they fail to realize it's really them that is not having or not setting non-negotiables, right? So when you set a schedule, it has to be non-negotiable. I'm gonna kick it off, and then me and then Shay is gonna come next. Let me know when you can see my screen, guys. You guys can't see it?
Mm-mm.
Let me see.
No,
Try this.
ma'am.
Oh, Zoom has a permission button.
There you go.
Okay. I just update. All right. You guys can see this?
Yes, we're good.
All right, perfect. So again, consistent schedule, consistent results. When I started making sure I had non-negotiables during the day and in the evening, and making sure I separated my activity one from the other, meaning recruiting activity from QA activity, and just making sure the focus was scheduled in a specific block scheduled time. That's when my results got more consistent. The thing is that we're so used to being at a job and being given a schedule that when it comes time for us to create our own schedule, we start getting frazzled and we're like, oh my god, what do I do now? And then we start getting distracted by all these things that are around us because it's so easy to be comfortable at home. The best thing about Primerica is that you are your own boss. The worst thing about Primerica is that you are your own boss, guys, right? When you get into Primerica is you. You are Primerica. You are the business. And your team is not going to be consistent until you're consistent. You want to work it like a job. What do I mean? Today, somebody just messaged me and she was like, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm at work. You know what I said? This is work. She goes, well, I couldn't get out of it. Well, that's not what we're talking about. You're talking about apples. I'm talking about oranges. I'm saying do not separate work from Primerica, because when you separate work from Primerica, Primerica doesn't pay you. If you think Primerica is just this side thing where you're just coming for fun and whenever you feel like it, and you don't really come because you don't come in because in your mind you don't have to, it's not work to you, how is it ever going to pay you, right? So I tell my team, don't even talk about work. Cheryl knows when she's not available to pick up the phone. Cheryl, what do you tell me? Where do you tell me you're at?
Job, please.
The job place. This is the job place. This is the business. Either way, it's work. Either way, it's work. But don't ever separate and say you're at work. You can't do Primerica. No, 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 no. This is work too. So work it like a job until it pays you like a business. Because the same effort, the same hours you put into your job, I promise you guys, well, if you haven't already experienced it yet, I mean, when you get the first paycheck from Primerica, Gabby, I mean, how great does it feel? You're like, what the heck? You're doing some math in your mind, like, I did what for what? How much time for this, right? Discipline yourself, or a real boss will discipline you, and work with the end in mind. I find that, and I can speak for my team, and when I was younger in the business, I find that some days when you don't feel as hot and you're just doing calls, you're just booking invites. You don't really have an intention in your mind. You're just kind of doing it because you're told to do it. Okay. Work with the end in mind. Don't let your work go into, don't work in vain, right? Don't think that this is not going to be something that's not going to pay you. You want to make sure that you put in your brain these examples that you see, like a Shondell, like a Shay, like a Sheila, like a Siobhan Landry, like a Tanya Poe. You want to start keep paying attention to these examples, because then it starts building your belief. So when you're working, those days when you don't feel so hot, you're not disappointed when somebody no shows you. You're gonna keep going because you know it's gonna eventually work out for you, as long as you're consistent. Shay?
Let me just piggyback off of what you just said really fast, because scheduling is so, so important, you all. I remember when I first went full time and I took for granted the schedule. I think a lot of us do that, right? It's like, I have all of this free time. No, you really don't. I did not treat it like it was a job until it paid me like it was a business. I did not do that. So that's why I can talk about this, because I made that major mistake of just lollygagging my schedule. If you don't have a non-negotiable schedule, it has got to be non-negotiable no matter what. It doesn't matter if mom calls you, dad calls you, grandma calls you. They have to respect it like it's your job. Because if you were on the job, they would not call you and say, hey, can you go do this? Hey, can you pick up the phone? Hey, they would not do that, right? So you must respect it like it's your job, right? Until it pays you like a business, because that's just what it is. Scheduling is, if you don't have self-discipline with your schedule in Primerica, you will not make it, right? Even if you have a job, you have to have that, 5 to 9 in the evening time, work it on the weekends, right? But it has to be non-negotiable. It has to be, no matter what, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to stick to. And I'm going to make people respect it, right? My sister just called me, right? You guys know my father just passed. She wants to talk about something about my dad. I'm like, I'm in training. I'll call you right back, right? This is important. Oh, she said, my apologies, call me when you're done, because she knows, right? This is important. This is what it is. I was talking to my son about his schedule. So today he has a scrimmage. He had to get up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning to scrimmage. He literally, from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, he has a schedule. And he was complaining about it. I'm like, son, in the beginning, you're underpaid. Lord willing, you get to the league, you'll become overpaid in 3 to 4 years. Think about that, right? So you master the schedule, you become accustomed to it. It's non-negotiable now. And then in 3 to 4 years, you sacrificed it. You've done all the things that you needed to do because of self-discipline. And then boom, one day you wake up, you're overpaid. It's the same thing in Primerica. This is the NFL. This is the pros. This is what it is. So the scheduling, Gabby, is so, so important. If you don't have a non-negotiable schedule, this thing will fall apart. This is one of the major pieces to your puzzle, is the scheduling, right? Because you don't get paid for your time here. You get paid for results. And the results come from your schedule and activity, right? That's where it comes from. So this right here is the most important, is having that schedule. All right, so let's talk about the money schedule. Life Manager, 7 o'clock a.m. to 7:30 a.m. This is so important. I remember Hector said the moment his wife joined his business, he went from 400,000 to 800,000 because she took care of the back office, y'all. 4 diamonds in a year because his wife came in and took over the back office work, which is meaning, making sure the policies stay on the books, calling the clients that have lapsed, the not takens, things like that. Life Manager, you got to wake up every morning and check it, right? Sometimes you can check certain things at 10 o'clock at night. I can see a chargeback or what we got paid literally at 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock p.m. I go on and look at it. The next morning, I'm looking at, okay, what hit, what didn't hit. This is important. This goes along with that schedule, monitoring your business. Even if you do have a manager, you still want to manage what you've put in, because you want to follow up with your clients if something goes wrong, if they're going through the medicals, right? You want to make sure that they do that in a timely manner. Make sure that they're returning the phone calls from exam 1. That's important. So set time aside to look at your business in the morning time. Messages, send DM messages out before 10 o'clock. One thing I remember Suge saying on Jen's team is that the first thing that people do when they wake up is look at their phone. How important is that? So sending those messages out early is important, because that's what we do. We check our emails and we check our messengers. We check all different messages early in the morning. So when we get on virtual office is time to pick up the phone and make calls, not send messages. You should be responding to the messages that you sent out before virtual office. Virtual office is phone time. You understand that? That's important. Virtual office, 10 o'clock a.m. to 11 a.m. This is big, because a lot of the times people get distracted. Jen and I were talking about this last night. If you're sending messages out from 10 to 11, now you find yourself on Facebook, on Instagram. No. Pick up the phone and dial the number. Send the messages out prior to. You should be responding to who responded to you from 10 to 11. That is big. You got to protect those first 3 hours of your day. I remember going in the office, right? This is before Shaq was even a regional vice president. That morning time schedule, it was non-negotiable. There was no eating. There was no knocking on anyone's door. We had a goal card. We write our goals down on our card. We had to have the check marks on how many calls we made, how many interviews we set up, how many orientations we had, how many appointments we set up. That was it. And he would check it. It was a strict accountability on how many calls that was made, how many interviews did you set up, how many orientations did you set up. That's what it was. We had to protect the first 3 hours, and you were not to take any incoming calls. Don't take any incoming calls when you're hitting them phones. It's like a job. When you're at work, more than likely, most people are not going to answer the phone if they're working. Well, that first 3 hours of your day, this is what you're doing. So you got to protect it. 11 a.m., 3 p.m., follow-up times. All of this is important. All of it, right? Because if you don't have these non-negotiable schedules and times on what you're doing and block it out in your day, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Right? It's just like your job. If they don't put together a schedule, you're not going to get paid because you don't have a schedule time of when you go into work. Well, your business is the same thing. If you don't have a schedule to do the activity to progress and get results, you're not going to get paid. Right here, you're not getting paid for your time. However, you got to put time in to get the results so you can get paid, if that makes sense. Prospecting hours during the day. You got to set time aside to prospect. Right? All fronts have to move forward. There's not just one thing that we focus on. All of them have to move forward at the same time, right? Throughout the day. We don't separate recruiting from setting appointments. We don't separate recruiting from training, from promotions, from licensing. No. It all goes hand in hand. It all goes together, right? And then finally at night, if you don't have a 6 and an 8, you're in trouble. What Tanya Post says, a 6 and an 8 will keep poverty away, right? A 6 and an 8 will keep poverty away. 6 and an 8, 6 and an 8, 6 and an 8. Now you can do more because we're on Zoom now. But if you don't have at least those 2 in the evening, at least 2, you're in trouble. So, this is a huge part of the puzzle in Primerica, you all, right? In order for Shondell to set 30 appointments to do 17,000, there's a strict schedule within there. There's a strict schedule, even for her to do almost 5,000 in a week in premium. There's a strict schedule. Jen, you've done 5,000 in a week before. That's a schedule.
Yep.
There's a certain amount of appointments that were done, that were set, that went on and got results in order to have that. And it starts with scheduling. Jen?
Yep. So let's talk about these one by one, guys. Let's break it down. When you're looking at Life Manager, this is life pending. Okay. This is what it's called, life pending. You guys will figure out what it means when you produce a lot more. And if you're not having pending challenges, you're not writing any business. So just know that. Okay. So if you look at your pending and there's nothing there and you got no issues, right? No issues, I mean, issue policies or issues doesn't mean like chargebacks or anything else. And you ain't got no issues, you're not writing business. So pending should not take forever. Obviously, when you get a lot bigger, you should have an office manager and all that good stuff to help you so you can be more in the field. But when you look at Life Manager, the first thing and the main things I look at are issued with requirements. Which apps did we accept, got issued with requirements? Meaning, most importantly, new money to collect, MRNs, money requirement notices, and amendments to collect to policies that changed from the time they applied. So if somebody applies for standard non-tobacco and 100,000 for $40 a month, they come out rated and it's now $60 a month. The company is going to require what's called an amendment. And if you don't send that amendment back into Primerica with the client's signature, you will get a chargeback if it's not a COD. And also the policy will go non-taken. And now you have to do a lot more paperwork in the back end, and the client's not going to like it. And the clients are not that great at getting back to us either in quarantine. It was a lot easier just to get somebody to sign when we could see them in person. But now we have to wait for them to print it. They got to send it back to us. It's got to be e-signature or not e-signature, right, Shay? But the MRNs, that's new business. If you have a COD, it's issued with requirements, and MRN needs to be collected, that needs to be collected so you can get new business in. And MRNs normally take a couple of days to process in the company. So if you're trying to get promoted, Gabby, Cheryl, you guys got to know your deadline, okay? The deadline with month end and the official close of business. We're not going to go over that today. But if those MRNs don't get processed within due time, you don't get production credit, you don't get paid. So you got to know how the company works and where to send these MRNs and when to follow up. Secondly, we look at urgent apps in danger of going non-taken. The CODs are going to be the secondary to this, but those apps that went in with money, if they are in danger of going non-taken and you see a yellow exclamation mark, a yellow triangle with an exclamation mark next to it, that app is about to go non-taken, which means whatever needs to be done, you need to focus on that right now, especially if that app is getting ready to charge back. If it's a COD, okay, we can kind of put our foot off right there and worry about the one that's not COD first, and then pending requirements. So anything that just recently got submitted, if it still says pending and it's been a couple of days, what is it pending? Is it pending attending physician statement from the client's doctor? Is it pending a tele-underwriting interview? Or is the company trying to reach the client and they can't reach the client to interview them on the phone and ask them those additional medical questions? Or is it pending other stuff, right? You've got to know these things. And this has to be done so you can create that to-do list for the day and add to your to-do list and get that all done. This is where it starts, where you know how to run your back office, and then you can teach somebody else to run theirs. You don't want to do that for your whole team when you start getting big, guys. Trust me, it's going to bog you down and you're not going to have time for the field. Get this done first thing in the day so you can do the fun stuff, right, Shay?
Go to the next slide. There we go. Social media direct messages. So listen, you all, this is what we were talking about to send before you start making the calls. Getting these messages out and doing them consistently is very, very, very important, right? This is not my first way to prospect, but this is one of the ways. I have several. All right. Outside of my warm, hot, cool market, outside of recruiting people for our teammates, this will probably be and outside of recruiting clients, this will probably be my fourth or fifth option, but I still do it, right? Because I want to have multiple ways to get people in my pipeline, to get them on appointments, to sit down with them on appointments and recruit them. So this is a way. And this is what I found. It took me 4 months. I remember from December of 2019 to March of 2020, right when the pandemic started, I was sending out messages. I didn't start getting hits until March. It took me 4 months and I was doing it consistently. I was sending out 50 a day, 7 days a week, 50 minimum social media messages. I was so frustrated. I was like, man, I'm not getting any hits. I'm so sick of this, but I keep hearing people say, social media, social media, social media. I didn't get anything for 4 months. It's like, you know, you guys seen that on Instagram and Facebook, you see the guy hitting for gold and then one turns around, then one keeps hitting, he takes that next swing and there's the gold. I was this close from stop sending social media. I was like, this is some crap. I'm so sick of this. Ain't nobody responding. Man, in March, 4 months after doing it, it's like the floodgates opened up. Can you imagine had I stopped? And at this time, we didn't have anyone showing up. It was just me and Donald. No one was showing up. It was the beginning of the pandemic. People were falling off. And here I am sending out these stupid messages and then boom. And then, so from the beginning of the pandemic up until now is what we got from most of us sending out messages, because, you know, for a certain period of time, nobody was doing anything. We was all in the house sending out messages. We weren't even going out. We're trying to figure out like, what the heck is happening? What's going on? But I got to make money. I don't have a job. So we got to figure this thing out. So social media, that's what kept us afloat, right? So I never stopped because of that, right? It's like, if you're consistently doing something, it's like the power of compound interest, just like in your bread, it kicks in. It kicks in. So you want to make sure, if this is one of the ways that you're reaching out to people to recruit them and get appointments and to build your pipeline, it has to be every single morning, a minimum of 50, and you can't skip a day, because I'm telling you, when you skip a day, it messes up that momentum, right? It's just like when you want to get in shape. It's just like when you are, you know, doing the intermittent fasting. You have to keep that non-negotiable schedule. Minimum amount of messages you are going to send, that non-negotiable is 50, right? Jackie Ashford said between 50 and 70 for the animated video. And what did she say? She gets 3 to 4 directs a month just from sending out a minimum of 50 to 70. Shaq said, how often do you send them? She said, every day. Every day. She said, yeah, every day. Like, duh, why wouldn't I do it every day? She said, literally, I'm phone in hand sending out messages. Why
Mm.
can't we do? We